All right. Hey guys, Arvin here from Team Millie Analysis. Welcome to today's video where I'm going to be discussing the Iran U23 team ahead of the U23 Asian Cup. I'm going to be talking about the squad that was called up for this tournament, players that were left out, the group that we're in, and the games that we're going to be playing, as well as my personal thoughts on a couple matters. And yeah, my overall predictions for how the tournament is going to pan out. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, just brief overview of the squad that was called up. Every squad for the U23 Asian Cup is supposed to be 23 players in total, and 23 were called up. So that pretty much allows a coach to call up three goalkeepers and then two players per each position on the team. So 23 in total. Uh, Teams are mandated to call up three goalkeepers. So there isn't an option to call up two keepers and an extra outfield player. You have to call up three, and then you have 20 other players that you can call up. So, for those of you who don't know, the coach for the U23 national team is Ravon Um, Omid Ravon is his full name. He has had various coaching appointments in the past. This is his overall career as a manager. So, notably, he's coached Saipa, and most recently, in the last 2 to 3 years, we can look at his recent appointments. They have been with Paycon, Avodor, and now the U23 national team, or Tima Omid, as it's otherwise known. Something to note is when he was selected as U23 manager, there was a lot of criticism because of his last two coaching positions and how they ended up, because both of his former teams, so Paycon and Havodar, were relegated while he was managing them, so they were relegated under his watch. So that's why a lot of people were like, well, this is a coach who has been unsuccessful the last 2 seasons, has had the teams that he's coached get relegated, so why is he getting appointed now as U23 manager? So he came into the job receiving a lot of criticism. However, one thing that you guys should know is that other coaches, I believe, were offered the coaching position before him. Unfortunately, the U23 head coach spot isn't that greatly compensated for, so the pay isn't that good. That's why, if you're a manager in the Persian Gulf Pro League, and maybe even some teams in the also the Gun League, so that's the second tier of Iranian football, a lot of times it's not financially a good decision to take up this position, and it makes more sense to just stay in the PGPL just because of the money and it's more lucrative. And also, there's other things as well, like there's bigger chances for you to make money under the table as well from agents and stuff. So if you get the club to buy a certain player and you know the agent, a lot of times in Iranian football, the agent actually pays the manager to get their players transferred to a certain team. So there's a lot of, dalal as it's called, like probably in Persian. But yeah, so really you are limited in terms of who you can appoint as U23 manager. Another selling point for the federation, I believe, on Ravoncho was that he was actually one of the people recommended by Amir Khalanoui. Amir Khalanoui is very fond of him, and yeah, really likes Ravoncho. So he was endorsed by Khalanoui, and one of the reasons why the Federation did decide to go with Travancore was the possibility of closer cooperation between the U23 manager and the senior team manager. It's something that we have lacked in previous years under Queiroz. I think a lot of the youth team coaches, especially the Omi team coach, w- didn't have the greatest relationship with Queiroz as far as I can remember. I'm not exactly sure why. I believe it might have been due to the fact that Kairosh maybe refused to release some players or let some players go and play for the U23 team. I mean, thinking back now, like players like Said Izzatullahi made their debut for Team Milli at the ages of, you know, 17, 18, or something like that. And, Izzatullahi was starting in a World Cup match at the age of 20, so I'm sure there was no reason for him to be playing for the U23 team. Other players as well, probably like Majid Hosseini and such. Yeah, a lot of those players got their start in the senior team pretty early on in their careers, so maybe that was the reason why Queiroz didn't have the best relationship with the youth managers, which is understandable from Queiroz's perspective why he would want those players to get integrated into the first team um, much quicker. Another point to note is that a lot of these players are playing regular team football for their club teams, so they're getting a lot of playing time, they're getting a lot of experience. That's why they're going up in market value so much, which is a really good sign for this team overall. It's maybe in previous teams, this wasn't always the case where a lot of the players were getting first team football and, were usually maybe not as prominent in their teams as this generation and this squad is, which is a good sign. So, starting off with the goalkeepers, I'm going to go position by position, give you guys my thoughts on all the players that were selected in that position, players that weren't selected, and yeah, and give you guys a little bit of background on each player. So, starting off with the goalkeeping positions, we have Mohamed Khalifa. He is a player who plays for Al Minhou Arok, 21 years old. And he is one of the rising stars of Iranian football. He was named the um, best player under 23 in Iran, or the best young player in Iran a month ago, so he got that award. Really, really good goalkeeper. He had a drop in form around a month ago, I could say. People say that was probably due to the fact that there was a lot of news about him making a move to Istiklal, and maybe that was distracting him from his his actual gameplay, it was maybe that's why he wasn't really focused, which isn't that good of a sign, if a player is letting all these talks and stuff get to him like that. But he has gone back to his best. He's been playing really well for his club. And yeah, he has also been invited to the national team on a number of occasions. However, he hasn't made his debut for the senior team. However, he has been getting called up regularly for the squad and training with the first team goalkeepers, including Bayram Van, Payam Niosmand, and Sayed Hossein Hosseini. The next goalkeeper that was called up was Amir Mehdi Makhsoudi from Sepahan. He's 18 years old. He most recently was playing for the U20 national team in the CAFA Nations Cup in the U20 iteration, and he was named the best goalkeeper. And this goalkeeper is one that I'm very fond of. I think he has a lot of potential. He's a really good goalkeeper. He has a lot of talent. He's a really tall goalkeeper as well, especially at a young age, like the age of 18. He's almost as tall as Khalifa. He still has room to grow um, in terms of his height. And, having watched Shaqiri at the U20 and U17 level, and having watched Maksudi, I do feel like if he manages to develop properly, I do feel like Maksudi had a little bit more talent than what Arsha Shakuri had to offer, even though Arsha Shakuri is a phenomenal goalkeeper. I always felt like Maksudi has more potential. However, now that he is playing at Sepahan, he made the move in the summer. He's not going to start for the senior team. He was third choice goalkeeper, but behind Sayed Hossein Hosseini and Muhammad Akhbari, which are two really, really good goalkeepers. Um, and there was no chance that he would be starting any games. Unfortunately, any cup games or any of those sort of games where you usually give chances to the second keeper were going to Hosseini or Akhbari, so he wasn't getting any minutes as the third choice goalkeeper. More recently, Akhbari has gone injured and will be out for 3 to 4 months. However, Sepahan are also out of the Hazfi Cup. So with them only playing in the PGPL and in Asia's second tier competition, so Champions League 2 or AFC Champions League 2, there is probably going to be no chance for him to get any playing time in any meaningful games for Sepahan, which is unfortunate. Hopefully he's still developing, but yeah. Maybe not as ideal. Would have liked to have seen him maybe play for a lower team in the second tier of Iranian football, if he was regularly playing there, or for another club where he would have at least gotten a chance to play in some cup games. But we've yet to see. He's still 18, so he still has time on his hands. The next keeper is Sayed Purya Rafi, another player from Sipon, which is weird that two keepers were called up from Sepahan. This player has been in the Sepahan youth system for his entire career. Most recently, he was promoted to the senior squad as a fourth choice goalkeeper. He has also played for the U23 team in a friendly against his team, Sepahan. I've never seen this guy play before, so I can't really speak to how good he plays or how he plays. It's just a weird situation for me because well, another keeper that was left out and was replaced by this keeper, Puriya Rafi, was Asha Shakuri. So that was a big surprise for me. Shakuri was a part of the squad for the U23 Asian Cup qualifiers that we played against in the UAE. And he did feature in one game for the U23 team in those qualifiers as well, and he was pretty good. He's been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal in his current team in the second tier of Qatari football. For those of you who don't remember, he was playing for Havildar FC last year in the PGPL. He really, even though his team did get relegated, it pretty much had nothing to do with his performances. He was amazing for them, especially in the latter part of the season. He was doing phenomenally. He had an offer to go to Istiklal, where he obviously wouldn't be starting. He would have been second, third choice keeper, and instead he decided to make the move to Laos FC, I believe is how it's pronounced, in the Qatari second division or second tier of Qatari football, where he has been playing regularly. He's been playing really, really well, and their team is on track to get promoted to the Qatar first division, so the first tier of Qatari football. As of right now, I believe they're either sitting first or second, and both teams, first and second, do get promoted. So hopefully, once the team does get promoted, he remains as first choice goalkeeper and can get a lot of experience in the first tier of Qatari football. Another interesting thing about the team that he's playing for right now is that they have numerous Iranian players playing for them, around 5 or 6 players playing in his team that are Iranian. The technical director, I believe, is Iranian for the club, and one of the assistant coaches is actually Ashkan Dejageh. So, yeah, it's been a really good team for Iranian players to go, especially the young players, to get a lot of playing time, and hopefully, if once the team does get promoted, they can all stay with the team and still get lots of playing time and secure their spots, and then hopefully make a move to Europe. So overall, many people weren't happy with this decision, but if Shakuri wasn't going to get a starting spot on a PGPL team, which he probably wouldn't have, or it might have been difficult because all the teams had their keepers already, and his team got relegated. If you're gonna play in the second tier football, you might as well go to the Qatar League, I suppose, better facilities, and maybe even a better chance of making a better move to another team. So yeah, just wrapping up the goalkeeper position. Super weird that he didn't get called up. I haven't heard anything about his club not willing to release him, so yeah, super weird. Next, moving on to the center back position. The four center backs have been called up, which are uh, Mohamed Mehdi Ezare, Daniel Iri, Masoud Mohebi, and ignore the last player, Bahram Goudarzi. He is a left back. However, the other center back is Farzin Mamoudzeri, who's yeah, you can't see his name here, but I will be talking about him as well. The other player, Mamoudzeri, plays as a center back and left back. So yeah. Starting off with Mehdi Ezare, he is a player who's been talked about a lot more recently. In Iran, he was playing for Golgohar FC last season, and he was sought out by the top clubs in Iran, including Istiklal and Persepolis. However, to the happiness of many Iranian fans, he decided to make the move to Russia, to Akhmat Grozny, which is a team that some of you might be familiar with, as it was the team that Milad Mohammadi actually played for in Russia, where he developed and managed to get moved to Belgium, I believe, afterwards, to Genk, I believe it was called in Belgium. So yeah, overall a good team. He made his debut. He didn't have a good debut. Made a lot of mistakes, costed his team the game, arguably. However, more recently he's been playing more for them, which is really good. He's starting to break into the team a lot more. At just 22, it's good that he's getting a lot of experience in Russia, and hopefully it's a stepping stone for him, just like it was for Milan Mohammadi, to make a move to a better European league. Next is Daniel Iri, one of my favorite young center backs in Iran. He is a lot more well-rounded, in my opinion, than Zoreh. Zoreh lacks a few things in terms of his distribution and comfortability with playing with the ball at his feet. Daniel Iri is much better at that than Zoreh. He's better when it comes to positioning as well and such. In terms of his positioning, he's much better than Zoreh. However, Zoreh does have a higher potential, in my opinion. Daniel Iri is right now one of the best young center backs in Iran. And as such, he's currently playing for Malavon. However, over there, I think doing his mandatory military service in Malavon because his actual club, he's on loan there from Zulbahan. So yeah, a lot of big teams like Persepolis are interested in buying Daniel Iri even during the winter transfer window, so we'll see where he ends up. But yeah, one for the future, surely. Before we move on to Masoud Mohibi, important to note that both of these players have been called up to training camps with the senior team as well. However, neither of them have made their debut yet, unfortunately. Even though both um, deserved, should 100% deserved to have made their debuts by now for the senior squad. All right, the next player that we're going to be talking about is Masoud Mohibi from Khaybar FC. He is one of the younger center backs that have been called up. He's only 20 years old, 2 years younger than the other two. A little bit about him. He's been playing regularly for his team as well, Khaybar FC, who maybe some of you guys remember Mehdi Rahmati was the national team goalkeeper, played for Istiklal. Mehdi Rahmati is currently the manager of Khaybar, and he has also been giving a lot of opportunities to youngsters, including Mohibi. He's been pretty solid for Khaybar. He has made a few mistakes in the recent games that I've watched him play. He's been good overall, however, maybe due to his inexperience, some poor decision making has led to him costing his team 2 penalties this year so far, or 2 to 3 penalties. One of them was a little bit harsh, that it was called a penalty, but yeah, overall, with time and with more playing time and more experience, he will avoid making those mistakes. He's really, really good with timing his tackles for the most part. It's just sometimes he is a little bit too rash when it comes to decision making, but also a lot of potential. Maybe not that good on the ball as Daniel Leary, but pretty comparable when it comes to his passing ability. When it comes to like a player like Zara, they're pretty comparable. He's also a really tall and really big player. For those of you who know, his brother actually is Mohamed Mohibi, who plays for the national team. So for those of you who've seen Mohamed Mohibi play, he's a pretty tall, big player, and his brother is pretty much the same. Yeah, last defender, ignore the Bahram Gudarzi, we'll get to him. This is Mohamed Legeri. He plays for Shams Azar in the PGPL. He has been playing pretty well for them. He's gotten a lot of minutes for them. I haven't seen him play too much. I remember seeing one of his games where he was pretty good. He was pretty good for Shams Azar. He plays mostly as a left back for them. However, for the national team, he's been deployed with the left back position and the center back position. However, during the qualifiers for the national team, I didn't like him at all in terms of how he was playing. In my opinion, he was making a lot of mistakes. His positioning was bad. His decision making was bad. On the ball, he was also really bad as well. And I have two clips from two different games. One where he was playing left back and one where he was playing center back. And some major mistakes that he was making. These are one of the bigger mistakes that he made. However, just overall, he was making tiny mistakes, and that's why I'm not a fan of him getting called up, especially because he did prove himself. So there is no real reason why he should be getting called up for the Asian Cup. And I'll show you guys two clips. This first one is when he was playing as a center back. So he gets the ball, he doesn't head it back to the keeper, he decides to play the ball out like this, gives it away, and that could have easily costed us a goal if the Hong Kong player had been better in decision making. And this is it's really bad if he makes a mistake here. It's still 0-0. It's the 52nd minute. If we concede over here and the Hong Kong team just sits back, and it might have been difficult for us to score, and we might have ended up even losing that game, which would have been detrimental to our chances of qualifying. So yeah, he should have had the ball back here, and he's left-footed, so this pass out could have been a lot better. It's not on his weak foot, so no excuses for this sloppy pass. And a lot of his passes have been sloppy. Yeah, over here, I'm just wanting to highlight that this could have easily ended up being a goal that we could have conceded if, over here the Hong Kong player would have simply passed to his teammate who was onside. As you can see, he was outside of the box. Momolgeri was still inside the box. So, and the other center back is nowhere near this other Hong Kong player. So, could have easily passed it to his teammate and we would have probably conceded. But, as you can see, I'll show the clip again. The player wasted too much time on the ball and yeah, was a little bit too selfish here. So easily, so much time to just pass it and decides to just yeah, horrible. And then another clip when he's playing left back, he completely misreads the ball, lets the ball go by him, and then again, this player just goes for really selfish, could have easily just passed the ball to his teammate who was at the back post, and we might have conceded as well, which wasn't good. But yeah, again, and he's playing mostly as a left back for his club team, so unexcusable mistake, it's horrible. And Khalifa does well here to save the team. So yeah, I wouldn't have called him up. In terms of other center backs that I would have liked to seen, maybe one would have been um Hasbovi. I don't know why I forgot his name there for a second. Yeah, Hasbovi, who there's a lot you can say about him. First thing is that there's been a lot of hype about him, but that's, died down recently. He's a little bit more overrated these days. A lot of people think he's better than what he actually is. He was actually a really promising player when he was playing in Qatar for Al Sadd. However, he took a step back in his career, and instead of taking a step forward, he came back to Iran, he came back to Sepahan, where injuries and just bad form have, led to a lot of people doubting whether he really is what a lot of people said he was when he was playing in Qatar. The future center back of Iranian football, the future Purali Genji. He really hasn't lived up to expectations in that regard. Um, yeah, before we move on to him, other stuff say he's gone dropped from the starting lineup for his team Sepahan. So even though he has been fully fit, he did play in their last game he started, but for the last like 4 or 5 games, he's been dropped from the Sepahan main team. He's been dropped from the starting lineup, so. Yeah, that's just because of a lot of mistakes that he made at the start of the year. He was really poor for them, costing them a bunch of goals and pretty much costing them their spot in the AFC Champions League elite. And they've only been playing in the second tier of Asian competition, so the Europa League equivalent. And he pretty much, him and Hosh Safi pretty much were the reasons why they didn't manage to play. Although he did score, he's been really good with his headers. He's been scoring a decent amount of goals for his club. He's really good when it comes to corner kicks and such. So I think being called up to the U23 squad as a backup center back to the other two that I just talked about would have maybe, if he had managed to get some playing time in the Asian Cup, it might have helped him get back in form. So would have been a good opportunity for him and a good opportunity for the U23 team. And even though I'm criticizing him right now, he is much better than Momlageri. So, you know, would have called him up. The next center back that I would have called up, maybe instead of Momlageri. So I would have called up either Hasbovi or this player Sam Daliri, who plays in the UAE for Ittihad Kalba. It's the same team where Nurullahi, Quddus, the Mehdi Mohebbi, the other Mohebbi, and Shahriar Mokhanu, all those players play for this team. Um, yeah, he made the move during the summer. He played for Nasaji Mazandaran, which was relegated last year to the Osmanlıgan League. He is on loan at Ittihad Kalba from Nasaji Mazandaran, who will be promoted back to the PGPL most likely this year, as they are staying first, I believe, in the Osmanlıgan League, and he'll be playing first team football in the PGPL again next season. He hasn't been getting that much playing time at all in the UAE. However, he is still a really good, promising center back. And he wasn't even called up once to the U23 national team, which is super weird in my opinion. He's 21, or maybe he's 22 now. And yeah, super weird that he wasn't even once called up. Same with Hasbovi, who wasn't called up once to the U23 squad. Although Hasbovi was called up to the senior squad, where he didn't feature at all for the senior squad. That's why he wasn't called up to the U23 squad. And for me, there's no point in calling up Hasbovi if you're not going to give him playing time, in my opinion. And even if Hasbovi were to get playing time, I would have much rather seen another center back like Zore or Daniel Erie get called up and get playing time, but none of them happen. So, yeah, moving on to the left back position, starting off with Bahram Guderzi, who plays for Aluminium Arok in the PGPL. He's a really good player. He's really fast. It's impossible to go around him. On 1v1s, he's really good defensively. Maybe offensively, even though he's really fast, his crossing ability isn't the best, but it's not that bad either. He's still really young. He's only 20 years old, and he's been playing as a fixed player for Aluminium Arok. It's pretty much their starting left back, so he's been getting a lot of playing time, which is really good. And yeah, he's definitely one for the future. There is news about him maybe making a move to a bigger PGPL team, but that's yet to be seen, and it's just rumors for now. But yeah, he's been in Iranian football for the last 2 years, really. He's been popping off, and yeah, one for the future for sure. Next, Farzi Momnagari, we already talked about him, and how he plays center back mostly for the U23 team. Also plays left back. The other left back is Arshia Vusuli Fard. He's 21. He plays for Fajr Siposi. He he has not been getting playing time for his club. He's been pretty much on the bench for the most part for them. When he played for the U23 team, he's been pretty good. He's better offensively than he is defensively, as opposed to Gudarzi, who's better defensively than he is offensively. So yeah, it's these are two good clubs. They offer different things, so it's a good balance in that left back position. They're both pretty okay. Gudarzi is, you could say, it's pretty overall a better player, but Momligari has been, I believe, preferred to Gudarzi by Ravonho. So he prefers an offensive left back. However, we've yet to see the team play against top tier U23 teams. So maybe against, and spoiler alert, we're grouped with Uzbekistan and South Korea. So against them, Ravonho might opt for a more defensive left back. Now, in terms of left backs that weren't called up and haven't even once been called up to the U23 squad, even for a training camp or such, one of them is Mersat Saifi. He's also been in the news a little bit more, for in terms of Iranian football. He plays for Shabab Al Ahli in the UAE. He is the teammate of Sardar Osman and Izzatullahi. He's actually played more in the Champions League Elite than he has in the league for Shabab Al Ahli, which is super weird. A couple of days ago, he actually had a really nice cross and an assist for Shabab Al Ahli against Al Saad, the Qatari side. And yeah, he's really good. He's better than the other two left backs, in my opinion, that we just talked about. And he hasn't been called up once, even for a camp, to the senior squad. So it's super weird to me why a player like him hasn't at least been called up to the U23 squad. Like, he's been overlooked every single time, which is shocking, in my opinion. It's absolutely like, he's really good offensively as well. So instead of a player like Wusuki Fard, who hasn't been playing for his club, you might as well go with a player like Saifi, who is 21 or 22, I believe. I do have a little bit of beef with him though, because Azmoun has been injured for the last 3, 4 months, I believe, and he's going to be injured for another month or so. And the reason for that is because Mersat Saifi injured him in training. I believe stepped on his ankle, and Sardar broke his ankle. So the reason we haven't seen Azmoun at all is because of Saifi. So still doesn't make him a bad player. He's a really good player, but I hold a little bit of resentment towards him. But still, 100% should have gone called up. The next player that maybe should have been looked at least a little bit is Rejvandi. He currently plays in the second tier of Croatian football. He made the move to Moscow-based team around 2 years ago now, and he's been loaned out to various teams and such. And most recently, he's been loaned out to a Croatian team in the second tier of Croatian football. He didn't start off playing for them at all, but in the last 4 games, he's played 90 minutes for this team. I can't pronounce their name, but yeah, it's a team in the second tier of Croatian football, and he's played full 90 minutes last 4 games for them. He's been making appearances here and there before that as well, and it's good to see him finally settle into a team. He wasn't getting any playing time in Russia either. So yeah, I really like this player. I haven't seen him play too much, but he is more of a smaller left back. He's more offensive. He's really good with his crossing. And Yeah, it's good to see a player like him try to maybe it would have been easy for him to make a step back and come back to the PGPO after things didn't work out for him in Russia, but he made that move to the second tier in Croatia to try and develop and stay in Europe. Really commendable. It's not a bad league as well. Like we've had players like Moharami and Ali Karimi who played in Turkey last year. They've both played in the second tier of Croatian football uh, at different points in their careers. It was a little bit different for them, but still, you know, it's it's a league where our players have been able to develop pretty okay overall. So it's not a bad move at all for him. Iranians and Croatians in general, it's a good pairing. Thinking like players like um, Bronco, and even Skocic, two good managers, Croatian managers in Iranian football. Croatian players do well in the Iranian league and vice versa. So yeah, surprised he didn't get called up even once. He's 21 or 22 years old, so he could have easily been called up. Next, for our right back, it's Mehdi Mahtavi. He plays for Aluminium Arok, been playing regularly for them as well. He's pretty well-rounded right back, I would say. Pretty good defensively, pretty good offensively. He isn't phenomenal in either two aspects of his game, he's pretty decent in both in terms of offensive capabilities and defensive capabilities, but he doesn't stand out in any sort of aspect. Well-rounded overall. And like I said, he has been getting a lot of playing time, which is really good. He featured in the qualification. He was pretty good there. Overall, doesn't make that many mistakes. Yeah, he's a pretty solid choice. The other right back that was called up is Irfan Jamshidi. While it does say here on Transfer Market, it lists him as a right winger. When you look at the actual squad list that was called up, he is classified as a right back with the defenders, and he has played for the U23 team as a right back only. Ramonha deploys him in that position. So, as you can imagine, he's pretty good offensively, a little bit better than the other right back, Mahtavi, Rusuli Fard, or sorry, Mahtavi. What am I saying? Yeah, he's been better than Mahtavi in that regard, but defensively, he's not that good. He's a pretty small player, so, but what he lacks in maybe physical attributes, he makes up in terms of his energy. He runs non-stop up and down the field. Think about like a player like Moharami. Just super hardworking on the pitch, lots of intensity, lots of running, and he's kind of like a small pit bull, He'll latch onto a player and not let them turn, a winger when they receive the ball, and he's behind them on their back. He relentless, and I love that intensity. Now he is replacing a certain right back in the team who maybe would have been a better choice instead of him. And that is Jakub Baroje, the right back who has been playing regularly for Persepolis, a really big team in the PGPL. At the start of the season, there were some ups and downs for him, but as of most recently, he's been playing consistently 90 minutes for Persepolis in that right back position, especially because the right back that they bought in the summer, oh yeah, Serge Aurier, former Tottenham and PSG right back, hasn't been that good for them, and so he was Baroje was always considered to be the second choice during the summer. However, with the poor performances from Serge Aurier and him not being able to stay fit, Baroje has managed to make that right back spot his own. And for a player as young as he is, 19 or 20, I believe, to be able to live up to the expectations that come with playing for Persepolis, the pressure that is involved when you play for a team like that, and he's been doing really well offensively and defensively. 100% deserved the call up, and I know for a fact that this player would have been released by his club. The club did not refuse to release him, so this is 100% Ravel's decision, and it's a very poor decision on his part not to call up Baraje. Baraje wasn't called up, I believe, at all for the U23 team, which is shocking in my opinion. So yeah, one that will surely be missed. He could have easily started, I believe, for the U23 team. All right, moving on to our midfield. I'll start off with the DM position, so defensive midfielder position. Starting off with Amir Mohamed Razoknia, a player who I wasn't a big fan of in the past. So when he was playing for the U20 team previously, I didn't rate him that highly, especially as a CDM. I believed he lacked certain abilities, being really calm under the ball, really being physical, a physical presence. However, he has developed really nicely this year. He's improved tremendously. He's gone a lot taller, a lot more physical. He's gone a lot better on the ball. He's not really good at, he plays simple passes. He doesn't pass between the lines that well. He doesn't play, his distribution in terms of his long balls diagonally aren't that good, but his ball winning ability is phenomenal. He reads the game amazingly. One of the best player that we have who is able to win the ball. His timing when it comes to his tackles are near perfect. And yeah, at the start of the year, he wasn't starting for Istiklal. He made the move in the summer from Golgohar, I believe. But then once Istiklal was in a bad run of form and Ruzbeh Cheshmi got injured, as Razoknio replaced him, and he's made that position his own. So once Cheshmi even came back from injury, Razoknio was starting over Ruzbeh Cheshmi. So that just speaks to how good he's been for the team. Moving on to the second CDM that was called up, even though he's listed as a central midfielder, he pretty much plays as a CDM, and that's Abbas Habibi. He plays for Malavon. I believe he formerly was a part of the Stepan youth system. And look, he's pretty solid, nowhere near as good as Razoknia and another player that wasn't called up, but yeah, he maybe a little bit even better with in terms of his passing than Razoknia, but nothing too special either. He's the type of player you bring in the 80th minute once the game's over and you just want to you know, consolidate the midfield. I would not want to see him start at all for the U23 team. And yeah, I mean, he's been playing on and off for Malavon here and there. Really hasn't, he isn't a prominent player for them, but, he hasn't been riding the bench either. But he was called up instead of this next player, which is a player that I really, really like, and a player that I believe has a lot of potential in terms of his future and the amount of talent that he has. And that is Mobin Dekhan, the CDM who plays in the UAE right now, 19 years old. He plays for Al Wahda. He played for Khaybar Khorramabad last year, and his performances in the U20 Asian Cup last year really impressed me. He was the standout player for me, really, really good CDM. He kind of reminds me of a young Izzatullahi. Really good with his passing. Through balls, amazing. Long balls, amazing. Amazing in the air. His heading ability, phenomenal. Um, yeah, what he does lack though, his ball winning ability. So reading the game in that regard is not that good. As Razoknia, Razoknia is phenomenal in that regard. He Declan could be a lot better, yeah, when it comes to that. But yeah, he is currently teammates with Corbani, and he hasn't been playing that much in the UAE because he's competing with his countryman, Corbani, who has made that position his own in the UAE. It kind of reminds me of when Izzatullahi and Omid Ebrahimi were both playing in Belgium, and they both play as a CDM, and Omid Ebrahimi was starting over Izzatullahi constantly. That doesn't mean that Izzatullahi isn't a good player, obviously, Just because Mobin Dekhan isn't playing over Corbani doesn't mean Corbani is a better player than him. He's much older than Mubin Dekhan as well. Corbani is 24, Dekhan is like 19. So like 4 year age gap, pretty much 4 or 5 year age gap between them. So yeah, I mean, what else can you say? Most recently, the Al Wahda manager was forced to step down there due to some personal issues, and I'm not sure if there's an interim manager right now or a new manager has been appointed, but the new manager doesn't like either of these two. So both have been benched, pretty much, for Al Wahda, which is surprising to me because Kourbani was a very, very important player for them. They went on they went on a good streak where they hadn't lost like a game in the whole year, I believe, or something like that. Or yeah, they hadn't lost a game in the whole year when Kourbani was playing for them in the CDM position, or something like that. So he was really, really important player for their manager, John Morais, I believe was his name. But yeah, he stepped down, and the new manager doesn't rate either of these two, which is really bad. I was hoping maybe the new manager, wishful thinking on my part, that he might pair the two of them up because I think that pairing could also work. They have featured together on the pitch at different times, but yeah, a very unfortunate situation over there. He is also teammates with Tadic, so a good opportunity to learn from a really, really good player, former European player. All right, that pretty much covers the CDM position. Moving on to central midfielders. On second thought, guys, this video has gone a bit longer than what I was expecting. So in order to not make this video over an hour long, because I think we're already at the 40-minute mark, I've decided to split this up into two parts. So if you're watching it right now, this video is going to be posted on Sunday. I'm posting the second part on Monday. So stay tuned for that one. Thank you again for watching. If you watched all the way through, feel free to like and subscribe as well. And yeah, in the second episode, I'll be going over the remaining positions, so the rest of the midfielders, wingers, attackers, and then into some more technical details about which players I believe should be in the starting lineup and a couple other points as well about past performances. And I'm also going to be looking at the teams that will be playing and what to expect from each game and our opposition. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching and have an amazing day.